So here the poet wonders as how the little honeybee is so busy, how it becomes more energetic and work every day. That means how harder it works all the day. Okay. He also wonders how it is able to gather honey all the day, moving from flower to flower. Okay. Second stanza. How skillfully she builds a cell, how neatly she spreads her wax, and labors hard to store it well with the sweet food she makes. Okay, so here skillfully, cleverly, how skillfully. So the poet is admiring here the cleverness of the bee. Okay, she builds her cell. Cell means a small compartment in the hive. Okay, she builds her cell cleverly. Okay, very neatly. Okay, with a great skill, and neatly she spreads her wax. You know that yellow substances. Okay, and she neatly spread the wax. Okay, and in the hive, and labors hard and works hard. Labors hard means and works hard to store it well. So here the writer is telling, admiring the bee, how skillfully she builds a cell, how neatly she spreads her wax, and works hard. Labors hard means and works hard to store it well, to store the wax there in the cell with the sweet food she makes. So here the writer is telling us about how the bee builds his cell very cleverly and neatly. She spreads her wax and works hard to store the cell with the honey. And so you all understood, I think. So here in the first paragraph, the poet is wondering how the little busy bee is so busy and how it becomes more energetic and works harder all the day. Okay, he also wonder how it is able to gather honey all the day, moving from flower to flower. Okay, second stanza. How skillfully she builds her cell, how neatly she spreads her wax, and labors hard to store it well with the sweet food she makes. Skillfully, cleverly. Okay, cell means a small compartment in the hive, and she neat spreads her wax. Okay, labors, it means works hard. So here the writer is admiring, okay, the bee, how skillfully she builds her hive. Okay, and you could see the each compartment so nicely it builds, and she neatly spreads her wax in that hive and labors hard and works hard to store it well. That means they all the bees, they work together to see that the house, that is the hive, is strongly built, and the wax that they have collected from, that means the nectar that they have collected from the flower, is being spread neatly in the cell. Okay, so here the first two paragraph, the poet, the first two paragraph is describing about the bee. Okay, where he says how beautifully it is building her hive and how neatly it is spreading her wax, and how they protected, that means how they are protecting their hives, okay, together. That means they usually, you could see them in groups, okay, together, how they work in groups to protect their hives. So the first two stanza, the poet is admiring the quality of the bee, okay, where it works very hard throughout the day, moving from one flower to another flower to collect the nectar, and builds her cell, okay, and spreads her wax so neatly and keeps guarding them in group. Okay, so here he is describing, that means he is describing about the bee. Okay, first two stanza. Third stanza. In work of labor or of skill, I would be busy too, but Satan finds some mischief still for idle hands to do. So, in work of labor or of skill. So, here the poet says that, okay, in work of labor or of skill, in work or of skill, okay, he says even he wants to be like a bee. Okay, in work of labor or of skill, he says that he wants to be like a bee, because for Satan finds some mischief still for idle hands to do. Satan. Satan means evil spirit. For Satan finds some mischief still for idle hands to do. Okay. So here the poet is inspired by the bee, and he says that he wants to be like a bee. Okay. Whatever he do, whether he works or of labor or of a skill, he says that he wants to be like a busy bee. And he even feels that Satan, that is evil spirit, okay, if he is idle, okay, evil spirits will influence him. That is, evil, an idle person, you might have all heard about the proverb, an idle's mind is a devil's workshop. So he says that he doesn't remain idle. He wants to be busy like a bee. So he says that a man without a work will be like a man who do some mischievous or an evil thing to do. So he says that we should not let the Satan, that means evil spirit, to sit in our mind, okay, and do something mischievous. Therefore, he says that he wants to be busy, not allowing the Satan to mislead him in doing some mischief. I think you all understood. So third stanza, he says that in work of labor or of skill, I would be busy too. So he says that he like busy bee, he wants to be like that. Means the poet is inspired by the bee, and he says that he wants to be like it. Okay, whenever he wants to do some work or show his skill, he will be busy doing it. Okay, he even feels that if he is idle, Satan will make use. That means he may do some mischief. His mind will be filled with the mischievous things and make him to do some mischiefs. Okay, so he doesn't want to be a lazy person, and he wants to do some useful work so that he can lead his life doing some useful things in his life. So fourth stanza, in books of work or helpful play, let my first year be passed, that I may give for every day some good account at last. Let my first year. So let my first year means early year. Let my first year be passed. So here he says that the poet wishes to spend his first year, that means his early year, that is his childhood. Let my first year be passed. So he says he wishes to spend his first year in books or work or a healthful play. So he wants to spend his first year, okay, in books, that is in reading books, work, that means in working, and healthful play, that means in playing the healthful games. So he wants to spend his early days, his childhood, by reading books, working, and playing the healthful games, that I may give every day some good account at last. So he is here is trying to say that in everything, whatever he does, the poet wants to pass with the flying colors. Why does he want to do that? He wants to do that so that he can give a good account at last, so that he can give in the later days a good report to the people. So he doesn't want to waste his time. Okay, he says that let my first year be passed. So he says let my first year, that means his childhood days or his early days, to spend usefully. How? By reading books, working, and playing helpful games. And he doesn't want to spend the time waste, okay, useless way. Okay, so he wanted to do all these things in order to give a good account at last. Okay, so the last paragraph he tells us, he says like this: the poet wants to, that means he wishes to spend his early years in a profitable, that means in a useful manner. He wants to involve himself in a work, either doing some good work, reading some good books, and playing a helpful game, so that at the end he can give a good account. So the first two paragraphs, that means the first two stanza, the poet describes about the bee, that is how beautifully she builds her cell, and how neatly she spreads her wax, and how hard does it work all the day to collect the nectar from flower and builds a cell. Okay, in the third paragraph he says that he wants to be busy like the bee, because if he is idle, a satan, that is evil mischiefs. Okay, that is, if you are idle, that is if you are lazy. Okay, the idle, that means the satan will make use of you and make you to do some mischievous. Okay, therefore he wants to be completely engaged in doing some useful work. So the last paragraph he says that in his childhood, that is in early days, he doesn't want to spend uselessly. He want to spend his time in reading books, working, and doing the, that means playing the helpful games. So finally he says that he want to completely utilize his time fruitfully and work hard without wasting the time. So similarly, he wants all of us, all the human beings, should be like a busy bee doing useful work. Okay, and bees, as you all know, builds his hives skillfully. So even we should work hard with our efficient skill and give a good account at last. I hope you all understood.